All right. Good morning, everyone. It's me, Smirk. So today we're going to be talking about the Age 115 final changes that came out overnight for me last night. I got them pulled up here. I also have the Age 114 final changes, so we can do some comparisons there if we need to. The main thing that I want to be talking about, here's the layout of the video. First, I'm going to talk about the Age 115 final changes, mostly based off of a member of the Changes Council perspective. So, me being in the council with the other council members, we talk about the things that we read in the suggestions thread and the Age 114 changes discussion, and from various DMs we get from a lot of you guys in our own kingdoms, in kingdoms we've played in previously, and so on. The list goes on. We read everything, we try to take everything into consideration, and then we also debate amongst ourselves to kind of try to find something that fits with what we are allowed to have, and what you guys are looking for and what you think is healthy for the game. As a reminder, we want things that are exciting, fun, but not too complicated, so that new players are still attracted to the game when they give it a shot. But at the end of the day, there's also the final hurdle, which is David, the owner of the game, who, he has lots of ages of experience and knowledge about what has already been done before. And other council members do too. It's not just him, but he does make some of the final decisions, and some of those things he's just like, nope, we can't do that. We won't do that. This has created an issue in the past or whatever. He has reasons. Sometimes they're not always shared, but he does have his reasons. So we have to work within those limits as well. Okay, so that will be the first topic of discussion. Then this is just kind of like a good mental exercise for me. I like to go over, let's see here, KD compositions. So typically, the last few ages I haven't been a monarch, but typically I am the monarch of a kingdom. Oftentimes I like to help new players learn the game, and so my kingdom is usually a lot of newer players. And I like coming up with kingdom compositions. I don't run them, but I like coming up with them. And the ones that I come up with tend to be pretty effective. But yeah, I prefer a free-for-all style. But anyway, I'll throw out some kingdom compositions that I came up with that are more intended to be like interesting or fun or just effective. Granted, some of these I wrote with partially the revised changes and not the final changes, but mostly final changes considered. And then lastly, I want to throw out some just fun combos, like race plus personality combos that look really interesting, at least to me. And yeah, hopefully it'll give you some thoughts and something to consider when you are choosing your own race personality, or if you're a leader of a kingdom, maybe some things to consider as a KD composition. Okay, so first things first, the Age 115 final changes. I'm not going to go through them very thoroughly, as you guys can read that yourself. One couple things I want to say: the doctrine did get changed a bit. David wanted something very consistent. We had a little bit of a tiered system in the revised and proposed, but he wanted it to be more linear. And we also were like, yeah, also with a higher amount of provinces to reach the maximum. So essentially, what you want to take from this is you need eight provinces to reach the maximum for almost every maximum bonus of 12.5. The only exceptions are avians and orcs. Avian has a 10% on attack time. Okay, yeah, it's highlighting. And orc has a 10% on OME. So those, we discussed some things to, how to make the math work out nicely, but ultimately ended up just staying the same. So it's still going to be the first province is 2, additional is 1.5. but you will reach the 10 a little bit faster, like 1.5 provinces less. So with 6 provinces, I think it ends up being at like 9.5. And then with 7, it ends up being at 11, but it caps out at 10. So that's kind of up to you if you're going to run Avian and Orc. You can still run 8 for the secondary bonus. One second. Oh my gosh, that's annoying. For the secondary bonus, because like taking a look at Avian, for instance, they also have a birth rate bonus, and Orcs, I think, also have like a raised damage bonus or something. And those are still at 12.5. So you can still run 8 to reach that maximum, but just something to consider. All the other races will have 12.5 for 2 separate things. So regardless of which bonus, it's going to be 8 provinces. Okay, rituals. I tried to get confirmation on this before, but as written, it currently states on Havoc, and this is, I want to point this out so everybody knows, it is written as plus 25% wizards per acre and thieves per acre, not just offensive. Now, keep your eye on that, because that might be a mistake and that might be changed before the age begins. We've already notified everybody in the council, so it's there. So keep your eye on that one. Obviously, if it remains full wizards per acre and thieves per acre, that's stronger than it's intended to be. Still not necessarily something you are going to necessarily want to run all the time, right? The other two, you can see the changes to those. No big deal there. Basically, as a Changes Council member, we wanted, the rituals that were kind of seen as maybe not necessarily useless, but underused and just kind of disregarded as good rituals. And we wanted to bring those up to feel more balanced with the rest of the rituals. That was the intent there. There was a castles change from 2.2.5. Obviously, it just, people were able to get really good reduction in gains with the castles, so we nerfed it a little bit. There was a lot of complaints and warnings in the suggestions thread, as well as DMs, as well as other people regarding these specific multipliers, the ones that reduce like time reduction ones, because you can reach a maximum amount of like minus 95%. You can get 1 tick build times, you can get minus 95% losses, minus 95% losses on thieves and wizards, and the overall feeling in the Changes Council is we don't want those things to go away. We want you to be able to do that if that's what you want to do, but it should be difficult to do. It should be something that you do have to sacrifice other, pumping your other sciences in order to reach. And essentially it felt maybe just a tad too easy to reach those values, and you weren't sacrificing as much as maybe we felt you should. Essentially, that was the generic take on this. Soul Blight, you know what that is. DFCF, obviously, we are trying to make it so that, it's 2 parts to this. We want kingdoms that feel like they're getting bullied. This applies to a lot of like casuals and more ghetto type kingdoms who feel like they're getting bullied. They're being attacked by another kingdom nonstop. And let's say the kingdom is doing just learn after learn after learn. And learns, one, they don't kill as many troops and they don't take any land. So the net worth isn't changing very much. So you feel kind of oppressed. You don't know what to do. There are obviously, the best thing you can do is obviously diplomacy. Try to talk to those and say, hey, we're not interested in war, et cetera, et cetera. But sometimes things get out of hand. Maybe your kingdom isn't totally listening, especially in casual kingdoms, like people that are newer, they may not understand exactly what's going on. They may feel like, oh, I need to attack because they attacked me, or whatever. Whatever the reason is, you have this option now where you can defensively ceasefire. You can force the kingdom into a ceasefire, even if you're in range of the aggressing kingdom. Now, if you are in range, you will take a loss of 1.75% honor and 1.75% science, because, you're dodging what could be potentially a war. You're in range of war and you're saying, no, I really don't want a war. Now, we don't exactly want to punish that. So what we're doing is saying, okay, we're going to prevent the kingdom that is bullying you from continuing to bully you, but you will take a little bit of a loss in order to do this. And then the defensive ceasefire duration is 48 hours, which is less than a typical ceasefire of 96. That's pretty much the intent behind that. Dragons. We made some changes to dragons last stage due to lots of suggestions and stuff like that. But there were some things that I think we either missed the mark or just didn't come out as like we wanted it to. We still saw basically the same dragons being used all the time. So we wanted to give these other dragons, some more, oomph, to be a little more attractive to use. And one of the reasons that Topaz is often used is because it had an upon arrival effect where it would destroy some buildings. Otherwise, it was pretty much always ruby and a splash of emerald. And then like amethyst, sapphire, those are like really rare, really niche dragons that were being used. So we added the upon arrival effect and a every 6 ticks thereafter effect as well for pretty much every dragon. So take a look at those and decide how you feel about them. Celestite dragon was just totally removed. And then one thing to note is there was an HP reduction of 2% across all the dragons. Let's see. This is what war doctrines were like last stage. The massacre is still 2x, and I think we weren't able to keep the bonus massacre effect, so consider that as well. Learns and plunders will have their enemy okay, so actually last stage learn kills were reverted to normal troop kills. So what I said a little bit ago about learns doing less kills, that part at least is different, but still. Okay, dragon. So here's what the dragons were last stage. You can look at that yourself. There's the rituals for last stage. The other rituals are the same. So onslaught is still the same. Haste is still the same. Ascendancy is still the same. Expedient is what got changed to benediction. And barrier is still the same. Okay. Now we're into the races. How do I make this short? Because I don't want to talk too long about each individual race. Basically, we looked at all the suggestions. We looked at what races were not being played, what races performed really well, and that's kind of like what our direction was for the races. Ultimately, it was more tweaking and balancing on the races than anything else. So as you can see, the majority is relatively similar to what it was last stage. Just some numbers went up, some numbers went down. Mostly the doctrines were buffed for everyone. And then you have like some of the passives and things like that were changed. So take a look at those yourself. Like Avian, for example, they were 13-0, 0-9, 16-6. They're now 12, 14 in war. Their defense got buffed and their elite essentially stayed the same. They also got a BE penalty. So again, not going to go too much into the races themselves. I'll probably discuss more of that when I get to the actual kingdom compositions and fun combos to play. So definitely take a look at the current age 115, and the previous age to consider, like if they were buffed or nerfed. But my recommendation is to look at them compared to each other, because nobody's playing what was last age this age. We're playing all of these races from this age together. So look at those compared to other. Like for example, if you're like, oh, do I want dark elf or do I want elf? Well, elf has more WPA, more mana, but elf has reduced more damage in their spells and reduced mana spell costs, stuff like that, right? Okay, anything that was really unique. Pay attention to Dwarf's penalty of attack time. You don't want to miss that in case you're a very strict, like 12-hour attacker that doesn't like to use barracks, stuff like that. Notice the Dwarf does have an increased attack time. One way to counter that is going Tactician, obviously. I think War Hero also has quick feet, so those are two ways to counter Dwarf without having to build barracks. That will make Dwarf, fall back into that kind of 12-hour attack time. Let's see, Vermin and Sloth. Sloth is an addition to Sage. It's on Elf. And any of these spells, definitely pay attention to the spells that are on the races, because Fairy has access to all racial spells. So, if, Elf has Vermin and Sloth, so does Fairy. So not much different about Elf. A little bit of a buff, I think, overall. Fairy, I would say Fairy has been buffed. Now, everything has been buffed, basically. Fairy's numbers pretty much all stayed the same, and the 5 population penalty is not great, but their main buff is that they get all racial spells. So this is probably like the main thing about Fairy that's like, that kind of puts them over the effectiveness edge. That includes things like Fountain of Knowledge, Revelation, some of these new spells like Sloth, they still have Vermin and Pitfalls and Wrath, and even, like the more defensive-y spells like Illuminate Shadows, they have access to Pitfalls and Blizzards, Mind Focus, so you don't even have to play a Mystic to have the Mind Focus available. Yeah, so definitely scan through all of the self spells. Another big one, Tree of Gold. It's on Halfling, so that means Fairy also has access to it. Which brings us to the next big thing, Halfling. Halfling has Tree of Gold. That is a crazy buff. Don't ignore that. Now, yes, there was a nerf. I think their elites were 13 before. Let me double check. Halfling was 10, 11, 13. So they took a hit on defensive specialists and the elite defense, as well as elite offense. Now, the defense specialist isn't all that crazy because, eventually you wanted to go 100% elites with Halfling anyway, probably. At least in terms of like raw power. And so really it's kind of like a -1. Their casualties were reduced a little bit, so now they don't lose quite as much when they take a hit. Obviously the Doctrine was buffed, and then the main thing, the sneak attack, changed to Silent Assault, which is half as effective, but it's passive all the time. You will always just suffer 50% fewer losses. So, it's good. It's really good. The majority was, under the idea that the 0 losses was broken and too strong. I'm in that group of people that also thinks that it was too strong. So I'm glad it was removed. Personally, I don't like the fewer thievery losses bonus to anything. I think that one of the main ways that thieves die is from those losses, and it makes a person have to really choose, do I want to really max out my thieves dens to prevent some of those losses? Do I really want to consider more finesse science to really decrease those losses? And so when you have bonuses like this, I feel like they're very strong. And since there isn't really too many ways to kill thieves in the game, like you have Massacre and you have Propaganda. Those are like the only 2 ways to kill thieves. And one of them, you're trying to kill thieves against a thief, and it's just kind of like, yeah. So basically Massacre, which isn't as strong as it used to be. So thief killing is really difficult now. And with these kinds of bonuses, like, I guess just put a little more weight in them than you might be thinking. So overall, Halfling, I wouldn't say was nerfed. I would say it was just changed, right? They have a lot more econ. They have greater protection, which kind of makes up for that defense lost. Less casualties than before, and everything else is approximately the same. Yeah. So, yeah, there you have it. All right, Human. Definitely take a note of Human. They changed from revised to to finals. I think in revised they didn't have the science efficiency or the minus damage from learn. I also think their civil administration got dropped back to 2 a tick. Not sure if these were all the same spells or not. And then the main thing is the elite unit got buffed to 16. I think it was 14. Compared to this age, much more capable offense than last age. Less science efficiency on their own, but with the doctrine, and now remember, you have to run 8 humans to get the maximum effect of that. You do get an additional plus 12.5. So they're capable of getting higher science effectiveness than last age from those two things combined. And a little more book generation as well. Now, this is also in war. So just keep that in mind. War, which only applies to the war and end of ceasefire, or end of war ceasefire. Okay, so orc. Undead. One thing about undead, there was definitely a lot of discussion about undead and the chances and so on and so forth. And so I think somebody or multiple people in the councils was a fan of just kind of going back to what it used to be. Always carries the plague, always a chance to spread. So there is a chance to spread the plague. This is a hidden even from us in Changes Council. I think David chose it and didn't tell anybody kind of thing. So there's always a chance to spread it on attack. There's always a chance to spread it on defense. But it's different than what it's been in the past. Or recent past, I should say. And then another big thing about undead is minus 10% science efficiency instead of the OME. This is arguably worse, so keep that in mind. Like early age, there's almost no impact of this at all. But late age, that can be pretty annoying to go through. So definitely something to consider there. All right, personalities. A couple things that were big changes about them from revised. I don't think they had this in the revised, so keep that in mind. And then also this was changed to 3 ticks instead of 6. Let's see. General is pretty much the same. I don't know if they had full military science efficiency. It might have just been like one thing. So that is quite a perk for general in addition to training elites. Oh, that's another thing. It's a 2-to-1 ratio. So you need 2 credits to train 1 elite. I think this was a healthy change. The elite credits was just so powerful, and it's still very strong. But we're hoping that doesn't overtake the whole game as the favorite thing to go with. But otherwise they're pretty much the same. Heretic, there was some buffs here and there from revised, so take a look at them. The blasphemous might's pretty cool. I think they are now the only ones with Fool's Gold, and the only personality with Vermin, and they also have Mage's Fury. So in addition to bonus Wizard Breaker, Mage's Fury, TPA, they're just kind of good at all the arcane stuff. Mystic, pretty much the same. Oh, I think Magic Ward was written on the revised. That's no longer there. So if you were thinking Magic Ward stuff, I don't think it's in the game. I don't think it's on races either. So I think it's just gone. Otherwise, they're pretty much the same. Necromancer, the scaling OME based on Raw Wizard's Breaker was vetoed, and so we just ended up going with kind of like an average of the 0 to 10 with 5. So they're intended, and I think we're finally getting to a place where they are successful at this. They're intended to be your AM hybrid, right? Your attacker mage hybrid. So good, really strong Wizard's Breaker, a help, like a little bit of a help on offense, cheaper casting, and some fun spells to work with. Soul Blight, definitely take a look. That's on top of this. They do have Nightmare. They have Guile for a little extra damage as well. Mind Focus for Wizards pumping. But one of the main things is this Dark Pact. 10% of enemy units killed is pretty strong if you like, and it does have some interplay with like Town Watch. So if you attack somebody with Town Watch, those are considered units killed as well. So keep that in mind. It's one of the few that can kind of like pump wizards as they attack. And this is for any kind of attack, not just Trad March, and also not just in war. So you can do this outside of war as well. All right, let's see. Paladin. Paladin is, I think they had some kind of offense in their passive. I don't know if that was changed from proposed to revised or from revised to now, but we ended up going with like a defensive military efficiency to kind of make them different than like a straight up warrior, right? With the +2 horses and the +10 OME, we were like, this is really similar to warrior, and that's not the direction we wanted with them. So we gave them more of like a defensive positioning. So paladins are kind of just beefier in general. And then also the destruction of the science was a problem. So we decided to go with the effectiveness and book generation. Book generation is essentially destruction of science, but in a different way. And it's reduced by 20%, which isn't insignificant, but you know, yeah. This is in war or hostile though, so you're not just gonna get like randomly attacked by a paladin and suffer these things. Just in war and hostile. Rogue, pretty much the same. Tactician. Tactician had a lot of changes. The enhanced conquest was causing too many issues, too many problems, so we had to toss it. And so basically, I think ambush losses was given, some draft speed or something like that. They're still incredibly strong. I mean, minus 15% attack time, crazy amount of credits, better draft speed, minus 50% ambush losses, no thief loss. I mean, they got everything, right? Clear sight, siege science is kind of whatever, but like, and then this is, yeah, destroying resources, which with every successful attack. Is pretty crazy. Like if you think about getting chained by multiple tacticians, like you're gonna be at 0 of everything. And one of the main things that happens when you get chained is you run out of resources and you starve and you can't pay wages and you can't cast spells because you don't have runes. So normally you do keep some of your stuff and you're at least able to avoid some of that, but with enough attacks from a tactician, you're gonna be zeroed out pretty quick. So keep that in mind when you're warring against tacticians, or if you're trying to pick something that has the capability of this. I think Orc had some resource destruction as well. So like an Orc tactician, like that's a lot of potential resource destruction. You can also use this like as a spread, right? Like attacking multiple provinces, like a more max gains type thing, and just destroying kingdom-wide resources across the board. So fun stuff to consider with them. And I think that is kind of the point of a tactician, is to like really be able to like think of different strategies that you can do. Ambush losses definitely helps if the tactician is getting chained. Oftentimes you want to ambush the chain target because you want to decrease the amount of acres they have incoming. But a tactician not only has faster return time, but also less losses from the ambushes. So really good for mitigating chain in general as a tactician. So really, really good choice there. Warrior looks really bland and straightforward and similar to previous ages, but don't let that fool you. They are still incredibly powerful. That is a lot of offense. That increases that amount of offense by even more. And that makes them easier to use that amount of offense. And they have offensive science. So it's just offense. And then also this destruction of the population, which is always a good thing too. So it looks straightforward. It looks maybe a little bland, a little traditional, but it is incredibly powerful. Don't sleep on it. War Hero was changed. The complaints were the reduced honor losses was kind of broken and not exactly causing the effect we wanted it to. So it was changed to still have increased gains, and the honor effects were increased a little more. +2 offense specialists and some fun spells. I had to fight, okay? I had to fight to get heroic inspiration on War Hero, right? It's Hero's Inspiration. It's supposed to be on War Hero, all right? So fight me. I will fight back. But they have Righteous Aggressor and not the regular conversion. So the main difference between last age and this age on that regard is rather than your specialist always converting, they only convert when you cast this spell, which gives a little more versatility and choice to a race that has a defensive elite. For example, Dark Elf, which was a popular pick last age, but they were suffering a loss of offense as they attacked because they had to convert their specialists to elites every time they attacked. It also gives like Fairy, Halfling, anything that has a defensive elite will get this. So, okay, so that's the generic overlook from the Changes Council's perspective. I always encourage everybody to continue posting in the suggestions, continue posting in the age, discussion threads, because we do read those things and we do debate them amongst ourselves. Now, just remember again, there are limitations in what we can do, whether it be coding, whether it's just a hard no from above, or for other reasons that you might not know right away. But we do discuss pretty much everything that's talked about in those threads. All right, so moving on to part 2. We are on Katie compositions. Now, I wrote down some of these already. There are 5 kingdom compositions, and I probably should have put them somewhere that you can easily see. But basically, I'll just go through them. So listening exercise, I guess. So the first one is Speed Oppression. This is an attack speed heavy composition that is intended to, overpower. Now, originally I wanted to say like 16 avians, all tacticians. But with the buff of doctrines, I really do think they're good to consider. So I did 8 avian tacticians. Those are your hyperspeed attackers. Now, what makes them better than in the past is they have like they don't have increased losses like they normally do. Where are they? Avians. So 30% attack time from this. They have increased birth rate. They have crazy offense specialists. So you can still, and you get plus 40% credits as a tactician. They don't have to worry about war horses. So tactician, that increases their attack speed to like, I don't know, close to like half time, basically. Like, and especially if you consider like the haste ritual, you're looking at pretty much a minus 50% attack time with avian tactician. So in addition to that, lower ambush losses, and clear sight, illuminate shadows, really resilient to thieves. And then you're making these crazy fast attacks that are also destroying the resources. So it's intended for like hyper destruction, just really fast, really brutal. So that is going to be paired with 8 elves, 4 of which are war heroes. I went with, I liked Dark Elf War Hero more, but I wanted to keep almost every one of these compositions is going to have 3 races only, 8 of each. So it's meant for a 24 province kingdom, because I didn't want to go to 25. I didn't want to keep it nice and balanced. And I wanted the elf paired with this one because, yeah, like I said, Dark Elf I think kind of fits with War Hero a little bit better, but I really wanted the elf here because I want 4 elf necromancers and 4 elf war heroes. The war heroes are there to be able to add in some bonus kill massacres. They have quick feet, so they're not going to keep up with avian tacticians, but they do have a little bit of a speed boost there as well. And elves are much more capable of like actually maintaining their honor. The bonus offensive specialist with Righteous Aggressor helps their offense stay really strong throughout the whole time. And they have really strong defensive specialists as well. So solid pick there. Elf is really powerful this age, I think. And then Elf Necromancer, that one should be obvious. I'll go over it. That's the most WPA you can get on a province. They have a boosted offense. Elves produce more runes and they cost less as a necromancer. So everything kind of just like works well together. So yeah, Elf Necromancer is a really powerful attack mage pick this age. And then the last race to pair with this would be 8 fairies, 4 mystics, 4 rogues. Straightforward, no shenanigans there, just mystics or fairies for, you know, increased defensive wizards per acre. So this is like a speed attackers, but with the augment of like a lot of econ destruction with like high wizards per acre provinces. Like all the elves, all the fairies can do magical things. You do have 4 fairies that are rogues, so you can, you know, throw in those ops as well. Yeah, so the point of this one is to maximize attack times with powerful econ control, right? So you have a lot of Meiji provinces, a lot of fireballs, a lot of resource destruction with the tacticians, and, you know, all the like duration spells as well that fairies can provide with, you know, increased duration that elves also give with their doctrine. So you got a lot of increased spell duration. Yeah, so you want to pair this composition with either a ruby dragon or a sapphire dragon. One thing that this composition suffers a little bit from is maximum like offense. Their offense is going to be lower than like orcs and stuff like that, right? So ruby can really help you there to like decrease the enemy's defense, you know, so you can hit some of those key provinces. Or sapphire. A sapphire dragon will really, really help you smash that econ with the 8 elves and the 8 fairies in your kingdom. That's 16 like heavy mage power provinces that can just demolish a kingdom's econ. So with the sapphire dragon, if you didn't look at the buffs, it's a lot of wizards per acre and thieves per acre reduced. And then the opponent kingdom also gets -1 mana and stealth recovery. And then obviously more spell damage as well. And the kind of fun thing about the arrival effect, it destroys 25% of rune. Again, back with the resource destruction tacticians approach, right? So you're wanting to take econ control as fast as you can while also just destroying their resources. So Sapphire Dragon combos really well with it. Ruby is there more for like if you need to break some high defense provinces and things like that. All right, composition number 2, Overwhelming Power. I'm going to list off the picks first and then I'll explain them. All right, so this one, I actually didn't have 3 races. I had 4. 8 Orc Generals, 8 Human Warriors, 4 Halfling Rogues, and 4 Elf Mystics. All right, this was just intended to get like the highest amount of offense on your attackers, the best, you know, possible like Mystic Wizards per acre you can get, the best possible Rogue Thieves per acre you can get. So obviously 4 Halfling Rogues, 4 Elf Mystics, 8 Human Warriors, 8 Orc Generals. Now, a Halfling Rogue, something to consider here, a Halfling Rogue will almost always have higher TPA than a human rogue, but a human rogue isn't out of the question. So you could switch the halfling to human because of the science effectiveness and so on and so forth. Now, halfling rogues are better able to become unbreakable than humans. They're better able to run higher raw thieves per acre because of their bonus population. So, you know, as a pure or a true thief, a halfling is probably still going to do better than a human for the most part. But that doesn't mean you can't consider human as well. And a quick break on this. All of these are just kind of for fun and I think would be effective and things to give you thoughts about. But like every kingdom has their own like quirks and changes that they like more than others and just personalities of their individual players. So, you know, if you want to use some of these, don't feel like you gotta like completely, like these are kind of just like guidelines or templates, right? So you're like, oh yeah, I really like that idea of stacking the elves and the fairies doctrines or whatever, but I don't really like the necromancer pick. I'd rather go 8 elf war heroes, or I'd rather go with all 8 fairy mystics or something. I don't know, whatever you want, you know, this is more of like a for fun exercise. All right, so 8 Orc Generals, 8 Human Warriors, 4 Halfling Rogues, 4 Elf Mystics. Orc Generals, obviously, so I kind of chose that before the Specialist credits got reduced. With that in mind, it's still absolutely not a bad pick at all, right? You still have, like, you still get the elite credits, but you may actually want to consider Orc War Hero for the better massacres. You get the offense specialist, and you still get Righteous Aggressor for conversion of elites, and you get quick feet. So it's up to you. Now the general does have the better military science efficiency, so either way you go there can work. Orc, let me double check on Orc. They already have Bloodlust, so that's even more offense. Their doctrine gives you offense, so you're already getting all of that with Orc. Okay, they don't have the increased massacre damage. It's raised damage now. So yeah, I don't know. I think the general is still a really good pick. Mist and Wrath, and you get the elite credits. So it gives you a little more control of when you're actually getting those elites. I think it's still one of your strongest offensive picks without just going warrior, right? You could just go warrior as well. But I like the general. I think it fits with Orc very nicely. Now that's where you do get the warriors, the humans. Human warriors are secretly incredibly strong. Crazy offensive. So minus 50% mercenary cost on warrior and minus 40, I think it was, on human. And they had that last age too, I think. So it's not like, yeah, mercenary cost reduced by 40. So you got I think a 70% discount on mercenaries. Really cheap offense there. Where's warrior? Yeah. And you can send 1 for every 4 instead of 1 for every 5. And they're +5 strength. And, you can hold prisoners without having dungeons as a human. So there's a lot of synergy here with the human and warrior. Lots of offense boosting, like I talked about before. And a lot of that offense is hidden because you can just fund mercenaries on a whim. When I say hidden, I mean from the intel site. When you do like an SOT on them, it won't show max offense as what it truly will be because they can just send mercenaries to, further increase that. And that's kind of the point of this overwhelming power kingdom composition. Your halfling rogues, straightforward, but best TPA. Your elf mystics, straightforward, but your best WPA mystics as well. So yeah, maximizing OME with the Orc Doctrine and the humans, also giving that boosted science for even more military efficiency. And the TMs are meant more as support, This would pair best with the Ritual Onslaught. Obviously, you're just getting even more offense from Onslaught. So that's 10% from, the Ritual, 10% from the Orc Doctrine, 10% from Bloodlust, 15% from Warrior. Like, it's just a lot of OME boosting, right? You're stacking OME on top of OME. Yeah, it's a lot of military power. So best to pair that with either a Ruby or an Emerald Dragon. Ruby, for obvious reasons, even more like offense domination, right? You look at your two kingdoms and you compare the offense power of both kingdoms and you're like, okay, this kingdom has like twice the offensive power as this kingdom. That's looking pretty good. Or Emerald, because Emerald just kind of like, you're a very attack heavy kingdom. You just want to do more attacks. You want to kill more troops. Yeah, so either dragon works there. I think Ritual, you pretty much always want to stick with Onslaught on that one. Bonus OME, bonus raise damage, bonus books, bonus science efficiency, and you get a split of sabotage damage, spell duration, and offensive TPA and Wizard's Breaker from the halflings and elves on the Doctrine. All right, kingdom composition number 3, Dragon Hoard. Dragon Hoard, the goal of this is for maximizing your econ, for funding dragons more quickly, and also includes some bank provinces. Hopefully you'll be excited to hear what I picked for those. All right, so the composition is 8 dwarves, 8 humans, 8 fairies. Pretty straightforward, right? All right, the dwarves, we're going tacticians. Now, the reason here is to combat that minus, or the increased attack time for dwarves. The tactician helps with that. You have clear sight and reflect magic on your dwarves. And then the rest is just kind of for obvious reasons. You're also playing an econ. Dragon Hoard, you're playing econ domination, so you want this resource destruction as well. 8 dwarf tacticians pairs really well together. The dwarves with 30% building efficiency, the doctrine that increases income, pairs really well with humans. And humans, the 8 humans are all artisans. All right, so human artisans, what did they get? Fun stuff. On top of 15% overall economy science, with 8 humans, you get the maximum doctrine, which is plus 12.5% efficiency. So let me add this up real quick because I haven't actually done this. So human has 10 times 1.125 from the doctrine times 1.15 from artisan. In war, you have a plus 42% efficiency to your econ science. That's good, right? If you had plus 20% income, that is now like nearly plus 30, right? So really good boost to your econ. Yeah. Now, another fun thing, they're immune to plunder, greed, and riots. So you can run some of those banks. They have better production, your better capacity for these things. And you're immune to those income type things, right? The greed and riots and the plunder. Ghost workers, so BE maximization there. Greater protection for a little bit of extra tankiness. And then you have, this effect, which is nice. You're decreasing the enemy's building efficiency whenever you attack for 3 ticks. So you can, coordinate these attacks to target provinces that you really want this effect on. You add the fairies that are able to cast really long duration blizzards. Now we go to the fairies, which have some fun picks as well. 5 fairies are just straight up mystics. You just want mystics. You want it to hammer home like the crazy long durations. And then once you've got them covered with all the duration effects, greed and blizzards and meteor showers and yada, 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 then you have leftover mana and runes just to use for like fireballs and whatever you want to do. Maybe tornadoes, like fun stuff that are econ specific. And then you have 3 fairy paladins. What? Okay. Now, a fairy paladin, you'd have to start off as a hybrid at the beginning of the age. So why does this work so well with fairy? I think, this is a personal opinion. 2 plus 2 warhorse strength, if you think of it this way, that's kind of like saying plus 20% offense when you're talking about a fairy, because a fairy's offensive specialist is just 10, right? Now on a dark elf, their offensive specialist is 15? So plus 2 isn't quite as big of a bonus to them as it is for a fairy. Now ultimately it's still plus 2 regardless, right? So, but the point is, all lands hold and produce, we calc this out, 8 per acre is approximately equal to 10% stables. Excuse me. 10% stables is more than enough to like horse the majority of your offensive specialists. So now you have, so you don't have to spend those 10% building points to get those horses. So you can actually function as a hybrid attacker as a fairy paladin. Obviously there are others that can probably do it better, all right? But the point of this is mid to late age when this defensive military efficiency will come into play. And that will allow the fairies to become more of a bank, really maximizing their defense with that 16-point defensive elite. And this boosted DME, they have access to all of those protection spells, both minor and greater, in addition to the 7.5 increase. Strategy science is increased by 25%. So with Fountain of Knowledge and Revelation, and the 8 humans in your kingdom, your strategy science can really get up there. They also have like all of these really good spells that are just protection, wage reduction, and so on and so forth. This will feel bad late age if you're running a full bank fairy and you're not able to use this ability, or the horses really. But if you're running with an econ style and you really want those banks, you're going to have these 3 crazy strong fairies that can all be ridiculously unbreakable, and they can all tog, right? With the fairy having reflect magic and leyline, it's going to be really difficult to control their econ. Now, they're still pretty weak to thievery stuff. Fairy does have the doctrine that reduces it, and they also have illuminate shadows, but you're still probably going to get gangbanged by thieves. So it's not, necessarily the best pick in the world, but it does look pretty fun. All right, that's it for Dragon Hoard. Oh yeah, so obviously the dragon, you would want to pair this one with either a topaz or an amethyst. With this, you want to really control the enemy's, either you want to control their offensive op capability, and that's where the amethyst comes in. You nullify all of their self spells when you send the dragon, and then every 2 ticks you're starting to kill thieves and wizards. They also have minus success with ops. They also have, I think, minus stealth and mana or something. Anyway, the point is to be defensive and cause the opponent to not deal as much damage to you, to preserve your econ, right? So you can just keep funding dragon after dragon after dragon. And then, or you can obviously pair with the topaz, right? Then you have good econ, they have bad econ, pretty straightforward and simple. The ritual you would want to pair this with is either Benediction. That plus 20% building efficiency really stacks nicely with Dwarf, as we all know, as well as the Human Artisans. With all that boosted science, putting your points into tool science, you can really get some crazy high building efficiency. Or you can pair it with Stalwart to give another plus 5% DME to your fairy banks, just giving them further protection, less losses, and raised damage protection, I think it was. So really fun there. Lower build cost, higher income, more books, more science efficiency, more defensive with Wizard's Breaker, and less sabotage damage as your doctrine bonuses. All right, the 4th kingdom composition, you're going to have 8 undeads, 8 dark elves, 4 humans, 4 halflings. Okay, this is called Plague Sabotage. That's where the 8 undeads come in. I obviously didn't really think about diversifying my attack personalities here, because these 8 undead are also tacticians. So I'm just now realizing that pretty much all of my attackers have tacticians, except for the overwhelming power one. Yeah, so it was avian tacticians on the first one. The third one had dwarf tacticians, and now we have undead tacticians. Obviously, tactician looks good to me because I'm repeatedly suggesting them. But yeah, I mean, you get the attack time, you get the bonus credits, you get better, there's just so much good about them. And then this destruction of resources is just so good, I think. Maybe we play this age and it just is not great at all after all, but it looks very strong to me. All right, so 8 undead tacticians. You're playing undead, it's mostly for the plague and being immune to the plague. So not only are you kind of putting yourself in a position where you're going to take less damage from other tacticians, right, as an undead, because at least the food part, you're not going to have to worry about starving ever. You will still, suffer the effects of the gold and runes lost. But at least you're protected in that regard. All right, the 8 dark elves are war heroes. The point of them, obviously, they're I really thought about saying paladin instead for dark elf. War hero just stacks so nicely, but the paladin does have the plague immunity. So this one, the plague sabotage, can go 2 ways. Either go with your 8 dark elves as paladins, or go your 8 dark elves as war hero. The reason for war hero was I think maybe the quick fee, actually. Yeah, no, you know what? Change that. I have 8 war heroes written on here. Change it to paladin. Definitely 8 dark elf paladin. You get the bonus war horses, which is similar to the specialist from war hero, that come for free. You get bonus defensive, military efficiency, whatever. It can just be converted to offense, right, if you want. And they're immune to the plague, right? So the point of this one is more plague domination. So yeah, I'd go paladins here with your dark elves. And then the humans. There's 4 of them. 2 of them are rogues. 2 of them are heretics. Halflings. 2 of them are heretics. 2 of them are mystics. Now, the reason I went with human and halfling was to pair their doctrines. You wanted a little bit more science, efficiency, and boost to kind of augment the undead, which has reduced, as well as increasing sabotage damage. So in this kingdom, you have a lot of thief power, right? Your dark elves can all do thievery. Your humans can do thievery. Your halflings can do thievery. You have 4 heretics, 2 rogues, and 8 war heroes. I think that's probably why I went with war heroes, is because like you have a good way to convert to elites, and you know you can use the credits to train thieves on a dark elf. So it's meant to be a lot. That's plague sabotage. Okay, that's what it was. So yeah, war hero makes sense there. Your dark elves are kind of like thief hybrids. They're attack thief hybrids, and that's kind of what the intent there was. And having those spells, righteous aggressor can really help them in that regard. You can also go tactician on dark elf instead of war hero. Less offense, but you know they can keep up with your undead attack times, and they have the bonus credits, which improves their thieves. So you could do that as well, and then it's all the resource destruction across the board. But yeah, the point there is you're giving plague out left and right, and you're also doing a lot of sabotage damage. This is best paired with a sapphire or topaz dragon for obvious reasons. You know, you're denying so many resources from the enemy. You have a lot of sabotage damage. So Sapphire works really well there. Topaz works really well there. And as for the ritual, you either want Barrier or Havoc here. Havoc to, you know, like probably if you go Topaz, you go Barrier. If you go Sapphire, you go Havoc. So you just really dominate on the ops, or you really dominate on the resources. So yeah, pretty solid, pretty fun mix up on that one. And then my final composition, this one was a more just super for fun. It's a mix of a lot of things. Ultimately, it's still 8 elves, 8 dark elves, and 8 humans, but they're all kind of mixed up, right? So you have 3 elf paladins, 3 elf mystics, 2 elf necromancers. Then you have 3 dark elf war heroes, you have 3 dark elf tacticians, and then you have 2 dark elf necromancers. Then you have 3 human rogues, 3 human heretics, and 2 human necromancers. Basically, this is a full hybrid kingdom. Every single province can attack. Every single province has at least the capability to thief or mage, if not both. Necromancer I thought was a fun combo with elf, dark elf, and human, so that's why there's 2 of each of them. So with human, I know, it seems weird at first. You're like, wow, human has plus rune cost. Right, but the minus 50% rune cost on Necromancer goes a longer way on a race like human who has plus 40% cost. So think about it, plus 40% cost, that's 140%, right? But 50% of that is 70%. So you still have a minus 30% rune cost reduction if you play human paired with Necromancer. So you're still casting cheaper, much cheaper than normal, and definitely much cheaper than a normal human when you play Necromancer because of that rune cost reduction. So one of humans' biggest penalties is completely negated and even turned into a bonus as a Necromancer, right? And you're human, so you got bonus stealth and all that extra science, so you can actually probably cast pretty well anyway. Channeling science plus the human science effectiveness looks good. Elf Necromancer, I think I already talked about before. It's just one of the most synergistic combos you can get. And then Dark Elf Necromancer also is extreme. There's a lot of synergy there too. For them, I think their rune cost is almost free. It's like 15% or something like that. So extremely cheap casts, good offense, good WPA to help them out. I'm getting to that point where I've talked so much, my throat is dry, I'm starting to cough. It's over soon, I promise. Let's see, anything else that isn't kind of just obvious here? The 3 human heretics, they have the best like science stacking for arcane. All of their arcane sciences end up being at like plus 42% and more, just like the human artisans. Something I didn't write down here because I think it was changed in between revised and finals is the general having plus 15% military science. Human generals will then have, with max doctrine and all, plus 42% to military science. So that's something to consider too. I didn't write that down in any of these, but something to consider. All right, so this is, full hybrid, like I said, with everybody being able to thief or mage, or sometimes all three. This is best paired with either a sapphire or a ruby dragon. You either want to like dominate on the military efficiency, or you just want to really capitalize on the hybrid fact that they can do so many ops. So hybrid, so sapphire goes well there. If you do sapphire, you probably want havoc ritual to like further press that dominance. Or if you do ruby, you probably want to go with stalwart. Now, I went stalwart instead of onslaught here because of the casualties reduction and the raise protection. So hybrids really suffer, like raises can really hurt, especially if you're running thieves dens. And then casualties, like you often don't have the build space to put too many hospitals in your build. So stalwart can really help there, and then pairing that with the ruby dragon can really provide a little bit of that help to augment your weaknesses. Doctrine is, OPA, spell duration, instant damage, rune cost reduction. Oh yeah, the dark elves further decrease rune costs for human heretics and necromancers even more. And then the bonus science efficiency in books. All right, so that's pretty much all the kingdom compositions. Again, intended to be just kind of like templates that you may want to brainstorm with your kingdoms. Consider some of those. And then last but not least, these are just fun combos. And some of these I already talked about, so I'll go through them pretty briefly. Elf Necromancer, obviously extremely effective attack mage hybrid, insane Wizard's Breaker, good mana, cheap spells, which they get more runes, great offense, and easy Wizard's Breaker pumping as they attack. It's one of those that are able to attack in war, like Trad March, while still increasing their Wizard's Breaker as they grow. So something that you want to like either consider playing or look out for when you go in war. If you don't deal with this province quickly, you're going to probably struggle a little bit with them in the long run, because they're going to get big, they're going to get tanky, and they're going to have good Wizard's Breaker. So they're going to be able to protect their econ from like fireballs and stuff like that. Dark Elf War Hero, a fan favorite. 17 offense specialists, you can't go wrong with that. Super cheap offense that are easily trained with credits. This age, they are not automatically converted like they were last age. You can choose when to convert it with Righteous Aggressor. If you don't want to switch over to elites, Quick Feet can help keep up with like tactician speeds. They're one of the few that are able to perform as a full attack thief mage, right? ATM across the board. If you know what you're doing, obviously there's some sacrificing here and there, but yeah. Obviously good for honor whoring if the player behind it can keep up with it. All right, Human Warrior. I don't know if I mentioned this one in the discussions. I think I did. They have the potential to be one of the highest offenses in the game. Really cheap. Oh, I did. They were in one of the combos. So I already talked about them. All right, Human Artisan, General, and Heretic. Two of those I put into my composition things, but General I did not. But basically, those are the three personalities that have plus 15% to an entire like category of sciences. So Artisan has plus 15% economy science, General has plus 15% military science, Heretic has plus 15% arcane sciences. So a human with bonus science efficiency can get, as the calculation said, plus 42% with max doctrine and all, while in war, as one of those personalities to their respective fields. So just fun to like pair together is all. Fairy Paladin, which I did have in there. I think this is an extremely fun combo. Able to become a bank with Tog and the Ley Line and Reflect Magic and all those spells. And then early age, they're able to hybrid as an attacker pretty effectively as well. And then any attacking race paired with Necromancer I think elf and or dark elf is probably the most synergy, with human kind of being like there as well. But honestly, any race can play necromancer, and then I think they work well with attacker races. Like, I wouldn't. I could see a halfling necromancer doing well as a TM, but then you're missing out on the offensive things that the necromancer can give you. So I wouldn't, really want to do that. Similar for fairies. Fairies can really pair nicely with necromancer for their wizards per acre and the cheap casts and so on and so forth. But you're missing out on the OME because you're probably not going to be attacking as much. You can do it. It can work. But if you're not doing the attacking, then you're missing out on their like wizard pumping capability and soldier production, right? So that's why I said any attacking race plus necromancer. So any race that you are going to be attacking with, pairing them with necromancer, I think is a really fun combo. And likewise, any attacking race plus paladin. For similar reasons, just a lot of good synergy, a lot of fun things you can do. Immunity to plague, free horses, which is free offense, boosted defense, like, able to suppress books in war and stuff like that. Good defensive spells. So yeah, any attacking race plus paladin, with the exception of maybe avian. The reason there is avians can't use horses. So this, which is one of the stronger aspects of paladin, is completely negated if you're playing avian. You could still do it for the immunity to plague and the defensive efficiency in some of these spells, but like avian already have illuminate shadows. I don't know. I wouldn't recommend avian, but pretty much any other attacking race. Yep, and that is going to be it. That concludes this video. Sorry that it's a little long. I think it ended up being about just over an hour. Hopefully you played it at like 1.25, 1.5, whatever you can still hear. Yeah. Ending with coughing. Okay. And with that, thank you everybody for listening. And have a great day. Have a fun Age 115. And best of luck to your kingdoms and provinces. Bye.